Water wizards. If you think ancient people were primitive, you need to see this. Subscribe now and hit the bell icon, because what you are about to discover will challenge everything you thought you knew about human history. In the scorching Arabian desert, where temperatures soar past 120 degrees Fahrenheit and rain falls maybe 10 days a year, a civilization appeared that should not have existed. The year was 100 BC. No computers, no modern machinery, no internet to share knowledge. Yet somehow, the Nabataeans built a thriving metropolis called Petra that housed over 30,000 people in the middle of absolute nowhere. Here is what makes no sense. These were nomadic shepherds, goat herders, people living in tents, moving from place to place with their animals. Then suddenly, almost overnight in historical terms, they became master engineers, capable of feats that would not be matched in the Western world for another 2,000 years. The water system they created defies conventional explanation. Deep in the sandstone mountains, they carved channels that brought water from springs miles away. They built underground cisterns, invisible to enemies, that stored millions of gallons. But here is where it gets strange. Their ceramic pipes had tapered ends that fit together perfectly to prevent leaks and maintain pressure. Western engineers only figured out this exact design in the 1800s. How did desert nomads in 100 BC know advanced fluid dynamics? Modern scientists using computational fluid dynamics analysis discovered something deeply unsettling. The Nabataeans designed their pipe systems to maximize water flow using internal surface roughness patterns. This specific knowledge supposedly did not exist in human understanding until 20 centuries later. They created pressurized lead pipelines over 380 feet long, using inverted siphon technology that allowed water to flow beneath obstacles and over hills. Roman engineers, with all their famous aqueducts and engineering prowess, were still struggling with basic water transport at this same time period. The main channel through the Syke Gorge shows precision surveying that required understanding angles and elevations with extreme accuracy. No surveying equipment has been found in any excavation. No written records explain their methods, no instruction manuals. Yet the gradient is absolutely perfect, dropping just enough to maintain water pressure without causing erosion or pipe failure. The calculations required for this level of precision are mind-boggling. They built dams with stepped faces that modern engineers now recognize as optimal for distributing hydraulic stress from water pressure. How did they calculate the immense pressure from stored water without mathematics as we know it? Their particle-settling basins purified drinking water using multi-stage filtration that would not be reinvented until modern times. Their flood control system protected the city from flash floods that still devastate the region today, 2,000 years later. What transformed these nomads? Some researchers point to their position on the frankincense trade route, suggesting they acquired knowledge from distant civilizations, India, China, Egypt, Greece. Perhaps they absorbed technologies from every caravan that passed through their territory. The frankincense trade was incredibly lucrative. Ancient texts describe how frankincense was worth more than gold. The Nabataeans controlled this trade completely, charging tolls and providing services to caravans crossing the brutal desert. But this raises another question that nobody wants to ask. If they were simply copying others, why do their techniques show innovations that existed nowhere else on Earth at that time? Why do modern engineers studying Petra find solutions that were not rediscovered in the West until the 19th and 20th centuries? The treasury, their most famous monument, stands 130 feet tall, carved directly from solid rock. The precision of the columns, the mathematical proportions, the architectural knowledge required. This was not trial and error. Someone knew exactly what they were doing. The building displays Hellenistic architecture, but with modifications and innovations that suggest understanding beyond simple copying. The symmetry is mathematically perfect. The facade has weathered 2,000 years of sandstorms with minimal damage. Recent archaeological surveys using ground-penetrating radar and satellite imagery have revealed that Petra was far larger than previously believed. Underground structures, hidden chambers, water systems that extend for miles in all directions beneath the desert floor. A 2016 discovery found a massive ceremonial platform that archaeologists cannot fully explain. It dates to 150 BC, built with precision that rivals modern construction, covering an area larger than an Olympic swimming pool. By 100 BC, Petra controlled trade routes stretching from Yemen to Damascus. They grew wealthy beyond imagination, collecting tolls and selling water to desperate caravans crossing the wasteland. Historical records mention that in 62 BC, when Rome attempted to besiege Petra, the Roman general Marcus Aemilius Scaurus gave up and accepted a bribe of 300 talents of silver. That is over 800 kilograms of silver just to go away. The Nabataeans could afford it easily, but wealth alone does not explain engineering genius. Plenty of wealthy civilizations never achieved what the Nabataeans accomplished. The Romans had vast wealth and still could not match Nabataean hydraulic engineering for centuries. Their hydraulic system included features that anticipate modern discoveries: pressure regulation, contamination prevention, sustainable flow rates matched exactly to spring output. Distribution networks that served 30,000 people with perfect efficiency. These concepts required understanding principles of physics that academic history tells us were unknown at the time. They built header tanks, inverted siphons, pressure release valves, technologies that appear in modern plumbing textbooks. Let me put this in perspective. In 100 BC, most of the world was still figuring out basic irrigation. The Nabataeans had pressurized pipeline systems with flow regulators. They had water purification plants. They had flood control that protected an entire city. They understood hydraulic engineering at a level that would not appear in Europe for 800 years. When Rome finally conquered Petra in 106 AD, Roman engineers studied the water system with amazement. In 2025, researchers discovered a 380-foot lead pipeline in the Ain Brak aqueduct system. Lead. In a pressurized system. This is extremely rare in the ancient world outside of elite palace buildings. The pipeline functioned as an inverted siphon, carrying water under pressure across valleys and depressions. The engineering calculations required for this are staggering. You need to calculate pressure loss, pipe diameter, flow rates, material stress. Get any of it wrong, and the pipes explode or leak catastrophically. They got it all right on the first try. The conventional explanation is that the Nabataeans were simply very clever people who learned from experience. They had centuries to develop their systems. They made mistakes, fixed them, and improved over time. This is possible. It is logical. It fits the evidence we want to see. But it does not explain the speed of their transformation from nomads to master engineers. It does not explain how certain technologies appear fully formed in the archaeological record, with no evidence of gradual development or earlier failed attempts. It does not explain why some of their innovations vanish from history, only to be rediscovered 2,000 years later by modern science using computer modeling. Consider the timeline carefully. The first mention of the Nabataeans dates to 312 BC, when they successfully defended Petra against a massive Greek attack led by Antigonus. They were described as fierce nomads who knew the desert, lived in tents, and refused to plant crops or build permanent structures. By 100 BC, just 212 years later, they had transformed into sophisticated urban engineers running one of the most advanced cities on Earth. That is the blink of an eye in human development. Rome took 800 years to reach similar engineering capability. Their capital, Rakhmu, which we call Petra, became one of the most important cities in the ancient world. Visitors from across the Mediterranean came to marvel at it. It was listed alongside Alexandria as a supreme city of civilization. yet the people who built it had been living in tents just a few generations earlier. How does that happen? The rock-cut architecture alone presents mysteries. Carving the treasury from solid sandstone required removing thousands of tons of rock. The symmetry is perfect. The details are intricate. But sandstone is fragile. It crumbles easily under stress. Yet these structures have stood for over 2,000 years with minimal weathering to the carved details. Modern geologists studying the structures cannot fully explain how the Nabataeans selected rock with such precision. They somehow knew which sections would remain stable for millennia. High places, scattered throughout the mountains above Petra, add another layer of strangeness. These elevated altars, carved into mountain peaks, align with celestial events. Some researchers suggest astronomical knowledge that should not have existed. Others point to earlier religious practices inherited from unknown sources. But the precision of the alignments raises questions about how they mapped the stars without telescopes or modern instruments. The Nabataeans left very little writing. Some inscriptions, some legal documents found in caves, but no technical manuals, no engineering texts, no explanation of how they achieved what they achieved. It is as if the knowledge was considered too sacred to write down, or perhaps so fundamental to their culture that they saw no need to explain it. Or maybe the explanations existed and were lost. In 106 AD, Rome absorbed Petra peacefully. The Nabataean king surrendered without a fight, and the kingdom became the Roman province of Arabia Petraea. The Nabataeans became Roman subjects, and their unique culture slowly dissolved into the empire. Their water systems continued working for centuries, maintained by people who no longer understood the full genius of the original design. An earthquake in 363 AD destroyed many structures. Trade routes shifted as sea transport became more efficient. The city declined. By the 7th century, Petra was largely abandoned, except for Bedouin shepherds who sheltered in the ancient tombs. The desert reclaimed it. Sand filled the streets. Knowledge was forgotten. The desert keeps its secrets well. Petra remained lost to the Western world until 1812, when Swiss explorer Johann Ludwig Burckhardt disguised himself as a Muslim pilgrim to gain access. When European explorers finally reached the rose-red city, they found monuments that seemed impossible for the era that created them. The mystery has only deepened as modern archaeology reveals more sophisticated technology with each excavation season. Today, some of the cisterns carved by Nabataean engineers 2,000 years ago are still used by local Bedouins for their herds. The water still flows where they intended, following paths designed over 2 millennia ago by people who were not supposed to possess such knowledge according to our understanding of history. Were the Nabataeans touched by knowledge from a source we do not understand? Did they preserve ancient wisdom from an earlier forgotten civilization that existed before recorded history? Did they have contact with advanced cultures that have been erased from our historical record? Or were they simply brilliant engineers whose achievements we systematically underestimate because they left no written technical manuals and do not fit our narrative of linear human progress? The evidence is carved in stone, flowing through channels in the mountains, stored in hidden cisterns beneath the sand. Modern engineers study Petra's water systems and find solutions that mirror modern discoveries made only in the last century using computer simulations. The mathematics is sound. The physics is correct. The engineering is flawless. But how did they know? Petra stands as proof that our understanding of ancient capabilities may be fundamentally incomplete. The timeline of human technological development that we teach in schools may be missing crucial chapters. The Nabataeans achieved what should have been impossible with the tools and knowledge supposedly available to them in 100 BC. How they did it remains one of history's most compelling unsolved mysteries. What else are we missing? What other ancient sites hold technologies that challenge our understanding of the past? And perhaps most importantly, why does mainstream archaeology seem reluctant to ask these hard questions about civilizations that do not fit the accepted timeline? The truth is carved in rose-red stone, waiting in the desert for those brave enough to see it.